One of the most diffusive technologies that we're anticipating hitting the market soon is a company called Sana, and we have Richard Hanbury, the founder and the CEO here, with a tremendous backstory. You can see him on CNBC and a couple of other videos on YouTube if you want the full backstory. But again, we have a short amount of time with him here today, really to get some quick updates on things like funding and things like where some of the bigger announcements that he's got happening over the last quarter on this amazing journey for an amazing technology platform. Richard, just if you could give, for folks that are new and have they're just learning about Sana for the first time, can you do like a 1-minute overview on what Sana is?
Indeed. So Sana is an audio-visual neuromodulation device for use at home with chronic pain and mental health issues. And we're going through 2 100-person RCTs currently, with 2 more lined up. And we are available as a wellness device already, but we are now going down the route of getting FDA indications for, first of all, fibromyalgia, and then secondly, neuropathic pain.
Perfect. And for the audience that's either new to HitLab and what we do and our testing and the research that we do, the idea is that we have over the last couple of years, we've done various types of analysis of the Sana device. As most of you know, HitLab is one of the leading research entities for testing digital health technology efficacy. And the lab tests that efficacy on 4 different scales: technical, economic, experiential, and clinical. And in this case, we did an N equals 14 study on the Sana device, 7 sham, 7 real. And then we actually were able to do with actual patients in an IRB approved study, we were able to look at the efficacy of the Sana device. Very much hypothesis generating study, nothing statistically proven, but we generated extraordinary data that led to not only a couple of very interesting findings, but sub findings as well. Richard, give us an update on the Sana. What is the biggest news right now about Sana that's come out in the last quarter?
The biggest news is definitely designated breakthrough status by the FDA for fibromyalgia. For those that aren't familiar with breakthrough status, basically it does 2 things. One is it gives us expedited communication with the FDA for the de novo that is going to be submitted shortly for fibromyalgia. And the second thing it does is it starts the conversation with CMS under MCIT for reimbursement for Medicare and Medicaid, with the aim of having national coverage at the same time as we get our de novo. So it's a very big leap forward, and really what it is the FDA saying that the data that we currently have, the pilot data, is interesting. The Duke study, which is the core to what actually to getting the actual approval itself, is due to read out now end of May, maybe beginning of June.
That's enormous. And we have a really diverse audience of people, not only from around the world, but across industry. I'm just looking at the attendee list right now. And there are a lot of folks who might not know what breakthrough status for a digital therapeutic actually means. Can you take just a couple of minutes and walk through that definition and what the relevance of that is?
Yeah, so in terms of getting the digital health technology to market, and here is our current device. So we're a hardware enabled service of someone puts on the device, uses the device, goes to sleep. So even though we have a technology that works and we have good data already, the 2 key milestones as far as investors are concerned are: the first is FDA approval, and then secondly that people are willing to pay against that indication for which we have FDA approval, because plenty of digital devices digital therapeutics have failed because of people's unwillingness to pay. And so what breakthrough status does is, one, it guarantees the timeline in which our de novo will be adjudicated, because obviously with a novel technology, you have a much more variable timeline, which is then much less happiness making amongst VCs. So if you're a 510K and you're we're the same as something else, we put in a 510K, that's a relatively easy thing for someone to go, okay, well, I believe you will complete that timeline by a certain date. If you're something completely new, like we are, with no predicates, with nothing similar, it becomes a real problem because your FDA approval could take 6 months longer than you think it's going to take you. What the breakthrough status is one, is it puts a defined timeline on that, which is great, which means we will have approval in September as long as the data comes through as we expect. And the other thing it does is guarantees reimbursement via Medicare and Medicaid under the MCIT rules, which were passed last year to enable the adoption and diffusion of novel technologies that are needed for healthcare areas in which someone is either lifelong debilitated or lifelong increased risk of mortality, and both are true with fibromyalgia. So it's a very, very good way of us getting proof that people will pay. We are backing that up with a trial to prove that people will pay out of pocket as well. And then with those, we should be able to launch the next round of fundraising towards the end of the year with those very major milestones hit.
Congratulations on that. That is a tremendous news, and again, it's certainly really good to hear. You know, particularly given the fact that so much of our society right now is facing so many complicated comorbidities of not just the pandemic, but the after effects of the pandemic, whether it's sedentary lifestyle, whether it's being sheltered in a place and being isolated from people. So it's certainly we're seeing, you know, rises. And Glenn DeVries from Metadata calls it pandemic 2.0. He's termed the real pandemic will be after the pandemic, and what we're seeing with all of the comorbidities and the long-term epidemiological effects of this on society. Tell us a little bit about that pathway, though. We've got, again, looking at the attendee list right now, we've got a lot of folks from startups, from digital health companies that either are about to get funding or have recently been funded, and they're going down the pathway that you started about a year ago. What are some of the things that these folks, that you recommend to these folks, without charging them a large consulting fee, that you would say, this is what you really need to be thinking about, you know, today, to be better prepared 6 to 12 months from now to get that emergency use authorization, to be able to understand the DTX pathway better?
I think the key concept that took me way too long to really understand is the one of minimum viable data. It's what is the easiest, quickest data that you can go after that does the next bit of de-risking, and that's the same concept whether it's on the clinical side or on the business side. And that's why when we did the 14-person study with you, that was me bringing you up when we had 21 days left before a NATO competition that we got into the grand final without data. And so the question was, okay, well, what is the easiest, quickest bit of data we can possibly get that helps de-risk that process? And that kind of thinking, I spent way too long trying to get the big institutions to do the large studies, and those are great, but big institutions have big institutional timelines and timeframes and attitudes. So even if you, like we have, get incredibly helpful people at really big institutions, they've still got to deal with institutional timelines. So the idea of, okay, well, what exactly is the data that is going to prove or de-risk to some degree the point that your investors are trying to get comfort on, and then what is the quickest, cheapest way of getting that data? That's the real key mindset that took me way too long to understand. And it's this idea that credibility is not a bar. You don't magically cross a bar and everyone goes, oh, you're credible. It's a ladder, and different people will see different points of that ladder as being credible enough for them to help you with whatever they want to do. So yeah, it's always thinking about what is the next incremental bit of data, either clinical or business, that helps de-risk the big questions that people are asking. And so for us, that is the big data on the fibromyalgia study, which we now just have to wait for. And then the next bit is what is the data that proves that people will pay out of pocket and or on breakthrough status that we will get reimbursement.
That's fantastic. And, again, I think it's important that for the audience, for everyone who's tuned in from all over, we've got some other spectacular faculty and speakers coming up in the program today, including Glenn Tullman, already a 3-time digital health unicorn, going on 4 with his newest startup, Transcarent. We'll be talking to him about the DTX play there. And then Sheila Collins will be on a panel at 1 p.m. from AARP. And again, we'll be talking more about DTX for age tech and what AARP is looking for. And then at 1:45, Melinda Barnes, the chief medical officer from Row.com, again, another digital health unicorn, we'll be talking to her about DTX there as well. So for the audience, the digital therapeutics world is an extremely important one. If you are a startup, if you're an investor, if you're from life sciences, if you're from a hospital or a clinic, or if you're just a consumer, if you're just a patient or an employer, it's going to be touching. It's already touched. We know that, right? It's already touched a number of different parts of the world, whether it's CardioNet and the remote heart telemetry company, et cetera. So these types of data and tech as a digital therapeutic are rapidly disrupting the life science market. And we've got a few more minutes, Richard. I mean, tell us a little bit about where you see this going. You're in the heart of it. You're in Utah, which is one of the heart meccas right now of startup. If you listen to any of the big venture capital folks out there, Utah, on a PhD per capita, startup per capita, Utah is really exploding around that kind of ecosystem. Where is DTX going from your perspective, reading and living this 18 hours a day, 7 days a week over the next few years?
Well, I'm particularly focused on neuro stuff always, because that's my background and that's where I came from. And fundamentally, neuropharmacology has failed to deliver. There are a bunch of drugs which go after each compounding comorbidity, all of which have large side effects, none of which have done anything more than ameliorate symptoms. I think digital therapeutics in general in the neuro space, and the ones that are connected devices like ours, are all going to be part of the puzzle to help undo that problem. The idea of a complex thing like anxiety or depression or PTSD being solved by a drug is just, quite frankly, nonsensical. And really what we should be looking towards is what is the toolkit that helps us undo some of these complex things. So for example, us within fibromyalgia, we're getting to 45% improvement in quality of life, which is 5x better than the best-selling drug. But the stage after that is, okay, well, what other technologies should we be interfacing with that gets us to a full solution? Similarly on anxiety, which is our next large trial to start, and we'll also be starting a trial in PTSD before the end of the year. And all of those, I think one of the real benefits of digital therapeutics is the ability to gather data in real time that enables you to test tools in the toolkit. So, if you think about the previous model, you've got, okay, well, let's do 1,000+ people on a drug and then see what they get compared to sham. And that doesn't allow you to look at any other variable. It certainly doesn't allow you to look at variables on an individual to individual basis. But as soon as you've got digital therapeutics and then wearables that are allowing you to monitor responses in real time, you get to a position where people can go, okay, well, what happens if I stop taking that drug and I start taking that drug? Does it improve my overall well-being? And I think that's really where the promise of digital therapeutics in the neurospace is going, towards individualized therapy that gets us to much better outcomes than we've currently seen. And with things like anxiety and PTSD, we need that more than ever. I mean, I totally believe everything you said about the pandemic 2.0. And I think where we're going to see it first, I mean, we're already seeing it if you're actually talking to doctors and nurses, is that frontline staff. They've borne the brunt of everything that's happened, both the avoidable and unavoidable. They've taken the brunt of it, and their mental health should be very high up our collective concern. And I think I'm hoping we can be a part of that solution, and I'm sure that there are others as well that are the necessary part of those toolkits.
Fantastic. Richard, tremendous congratulations to you and the gallery, the chat. You can see just the appreciation that everyone has for what you and your company are doing, your platform are doing, in really disrupting life sciences and really helping bring these new digital therapeutics to life for patients around the world. Thank you very much. A virtual round of applause from everyone in the gallery.